As his students shuffled out of the lecture hall, Associate Professor Malcolm Anderson collected up his notes on histology, satisfied that the majority of his students managed to stay awake with such a dry topic. He caught himself wistfully thinking back on his days as a student, fascinated with cellular biology, theories of chromosome inheritance, and the role of mitochondria. His thoughts were interrupted by the sounds of a crow tapping on a window. 5 slow, rhythmic, and meticulous taps before flying off in search of another way to entertain itself. He finished collecting his things and noticed a notebook on the edge of his desk. Not being able to recall whether it had been there before the class, he didn't really have time to ponder. Work was done, but they were expecting him at training. He put the book in his bag and resolved himself to asking his students during the next histology lecture. A pugilist of no real renown, Malcolm could hold his own with most in the gym. Today, however, he did receive one very good check hook to the face from the only southpaw that trained there, leaving a cut on his cheek and his nose pouring blood onto the ground. With some cotton gauze stuffed into the bleeding nostril, he continued as best as he could. A hard session often left him tired and bruised, but with a level of contentment in his heart that was difficult to describe. Hopefully nothing was too tender, for he had a date that evening that would definitely poke him in the ribs if he showed any weakness. Sitting lacing up his shoes, cotton in his nose and a grin on his face, he watched 2 of the lads hammer each other with blows, as thoughts of his love Siobhan, taunting him over his ragged state, entered his mind. And sure enough, as she stepped into the gym, her face contorted into the most malicious of childlike grins, and a barrage of mocking taunts had them both laughing with tears in their eyes for the next 20 minutes. Their date was simple, an evening stroll through the gardens with them stopping at the place they met. A lake flanked by pines reflected a full moon on its still surface. Large boulders lay scattered among the reeds, and the one on which they sat was the one she pushed him off into the water 6 years prior. Malcolm reached into his bag, looking mindlessly for a snack to sate his never-ending hunger, but found the notebook from earlier. No identifying marks, just a tattered book. He flipped through the pages quickly and found only one page had writing. Poetry, it seemed. Tonight was indeed a night for poetry. With a quick finger to his lips, he cleared his throat and read for his captivated audience.
Bored upon his twisted throne, there sits a king, the king of crows, with marks upon his face of bone, of deepest thoughts yours he knows. Rended flesh and wounds are bleeding, only under moonlight beaming. Recite this poem for his proceeding. He'll come to you when you are dreaming.